You have enough time, and you are not behind. My friend Keith Macpherson and I explore the scarcity thought that is so invisible sometimes. It's that we don't have enough time for everything. We're behind the ball. And generally, we can't fit in what we want or need in our lives. And we are exhausted and anxious as a result, even when it feels like this whole year we've had more time than we need and yet got nothing done in it. So if you want to see how to flip that limiting belief, you're in the right place. Incidentally, Keith and I have also had the pleasure of teaching together. He is super awesome. He is a global leader in improving overall mental health and wellness. But his work in mindfulness, anxiety, and even hula is pretty incredible. So please join me. And as we go through this great conversation with Keith, check out his book, Making Sense of Mindfulness, and come visit him at keithmcpherson.ca. Now, on to the interview. Hi, I'm Summer McStravick with flowdreaming.com, and welcome to this series, Scarcity Thinking Sucks, So Do Limiting Beliefs. So let's dissolve your limited thinking, dump those scarcity thoughts, own your power, and get you back on your feet, reaching for the stars. Over the course of these episodes, you'll hear from some really brilliant minds about ways they pinpoint and blow up limiting beliefs in their specific areas of expertise. So come with me on a journey into your mind and heart, and let's see what we can find in these very enlightening conversations. Hey, Keith, how have you been? It's been a while.
Hi, Summer. Oh, it has been, and I am so excited. This is like as exciting as summer up here in Canada talking to you, literally. This pumped to
What?
be. Well, we spent so much time in the cold where I am up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard
Yeah.
I had a call with Summer McStravick, I was like,
Summertime.
this is going to be great. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's spring right now, so everything should be warming up and lightening up. And I know the world is in still all sorts of craziness, but that's not what we're here for today. I invited you because one, I know you and I just totally flow so well together. We've taught together workshops, and I felt like when I was thinking of this big question that's been on my mind, the lack thinking, the scarcity thinking, limiting beliefs. A lot of us are moving into the year, hauling a lot of that with us that have actually kind of grown bigger
Mhm.
because we've been hit with so much that was so unusual, so outside of our skill zone, our world, like it's never happened to us before. And it made a lot of us retreat and fall back, and scarcity, limiting beliefs go up. You speak into that in particular about scarcity of time, scarcity of I don't get what I need. Let's start with that. When you see people and they're feeling that, what do you see?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I spend so much time during the day one-on-one coaching with people. And this seems to be such a huge theme is that underneath all of the worries and the anxieties, when we really break it down, I find a lot of times people are just so stressed out about not having enough time.
Yeah.
And I found it so interesting, especially during the pandemic that we've been going through, where you'd think that we'd have so much more free time and space with everything shut down. But it just
Yeah.
seems like people got even busier trying to fill up the space between everything. So
And
yeah, this
oh,
just
sorry.
becomes.
And or they come out with feeling like I'm behind. I'm hearing that a lot. Like I had a year of nothing happening. I'm behind in my career. I'm behind in finding a relationship, which is another aspect of not having time. So go
Absolutely.
ahead. I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
Well, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking about too how, yeah, it always feels like we're trying to catch up to something or that we're
Hmm.
missing out on something, that there's going to
Yeah.
be somehow this fear that if I don't participate or if I don't get that done in time, I'm somehow going to miss out. And it
Mhm.
just wreaks havoc on our nervous system and, all
Yeah.
the side effects of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're Mr. Mindfulness and Mr. Hula,
That's great.
bringing the body into the mind, which I love. I mentioned that. Um, what do you do when your clients come up with those thoughts? I don't have enough time. I'm behind. I'll never be able to catch up.
Yeah.
I can't fit this in. I'm not even fitting in the things I want to actually be doing.
Yeah.
Those are all limiting beliefs, right?
They are all limiting beliefs, let me tell you. And
Uh,
I find like just being a mindfulness facilitator, and I mean, I've been researching that practice for a number of years. And a lot of it is linked to how we see time as a perspective. The practice of mindfulness, the best way I heard that defined was mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment with kindness to yourself, other people, and the world around you. And it sounds so simple, right? Of course, I'm going to pay attention in this moment and be nice to myself and everyone. But you just even think about that first part, paying attention in the present moment, and just
mm,
how often our mind is not here in the present moment. They did a study actually back in 2010, I mean, several years ago now, where they
mhm,
found the average human mind wanders over 47% of the time. They did the study
mhm.
at Harvard, and what they found was that almost half the time in our lives, we're not in the present moment. We're somewhere else. And
Yeah.
often those thoughts tend to be thoughts about the future of what's going to take place or what's going to happen, and we're worrying and fearing, or
Yeah.
thoughts about the past, about things we shouldn't have done or could have done differently. And I think that's where we really get hooked with all of these limiting beliefs is thoughts that aren't actually happening right now in the present. So one of
Yeah.
the things that I like to do, especially as a mindfulness practitioner, is help people really come back into their body awareness and their self-awareness of what's taking place right here in the moment.
Mm.
So there's many different ways to do that. But just generally speaking, I use mindfulness a lot as a way to just integrate in presence and kind of counter some of these beliefs, these limiting beliefs that we tend to pick up along the way.
Yeah. So when you use your mindfulness, I know there's the way that you explained it, just the awareness of present moment with gentleness, toward everyone. But ha- this is a very basic question, and I apologize, but I know some people are wondering, how do you do mindfulness? like, like, like I want to do it, and you just telling me to just sit here and be aware of things, and
Right.
what is your favorite method to do mindfulness?
It's so funny because when I was working on my book, which I ended up titling Making Sense of Mindfulness, because I really didn't know what it was about either.
Yeah.
I had the craziest answers from people. People said, "Isn't that practice where you just like sit on a cushion and do nothing?" Like, I don't have time, speaking of time, to do that, right?
Yeah,
Someone
I
else,
don't even have enough time to do nothing for God's sakes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Someone else at
Mhm.
mindfulness, that's that practice where we all sit around in a circle as a group and everybody gets a raisin and we slowly smell it and taste it and feel the texture. I was like, what is this all about? So
That must be someone's technique, right?
yeah, well, there's grains of truth. So someone else said mindfulness, the practice where I do that every morning and I check it off my to-do list. Somewhere in all there's grains of truth. But what I've come to find and how I find this really effective is, mindfulness isn't so much about something I'm doing. It's more about becoming aware of like, how am I being in this moment while I'm doing everything on my to-do list? And so, I mean, some of the basic practices that I find really helpful in terms of integrating this into my daily life. Um, I think that just even the practice of taking a deep breath is the beginning of it. Just
Mhm.
focusing your attention back in the now. And one of the best ways to do it is to just anchor your attention back to something that's happening right now. So whether that's just taking an inhale and an exhale, bringing the mind back, or maybe it's
Mhm.
just focusing on something in the vicinity of right now, an object that you can just bring your awareness to and appreciate. And almost guaranteed, the mind is going to wander out of the present moment. It's going to see a shiny object or think a thought. And all of a sudden, you're back in
Yeah.
that 50% not here. But over
Oh,
time, as you practice, just bringing
yeah.
yourself back to the moment, we start building new neurological pathways in the brain. And
Mhm.
we also are able to control our thinking, which tends to bring us into this space of, I get to choose how I want to think about things. And example of time, if you just fill in the blank, time is for many people, people say time is very limited. I don't have enough time. But in a mindfulness practice, you take a breath and how do I want to actually see time and how do I want to experience time? So it's this invitation to start becoming present and choosing the story that you want to tell yourself and then living into that. There's so much. I could unpack this for days with you on.
Yeah, I'm thinking right now, like you said, you take, one thing that for instance, I went out earlier and I looked at my roses. And for a
Mm.
moment, I smelled one of my roses and I was like, oh, so I love this rose so much. And then I thought, oh gosh, I need to deadhead them. I need to get the sweet peas out of here. And I went from that moment, like, boom, to the things I need to do that I haven't done. And I went kind of into the future and I
Yeah.
stopped being right where I was. And that leads directly back to the sense of, oh, but I don't have time for that today. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm purposely putting myself into a position where I know I don't have time. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why did I
Yeah.
do that to myself? Just
Yeah.
was my brain freaking out? Like, you need a reminder that they need this. I'm like, I know they need this. Why did you distract me with that?
We've
What?
been so conditioned to just not be present, even in our
Mhm.
culture. One of my favorite coaches, Robert Holden, always jokes about this idea of like we're in a culture of just on the go marketing. And he
Yeah,
goes into this whole rant about it where, everything is packaged on the go because we've got to get somewhere.
yeah.
He actually traced it back and said this all started when someone was in the shower one morning and they had a bottle of shampoo and a bottle of conditioner and they looked at the two and they were like, I don't have time to use these two bottles, I got to get them, we need to make it two in one,
Another
right?
in one.
And then all of a sudden we're on the
I hate
go
to
all
tell
day
you,
long.
that's a guy thing.
Is
Women,
it a
we
guy
don't
thing?
use the no, yeah, women don't use the two in ones. No.
Oh, there we go. Okay, well, maybe guys started this whole trend, I don't know. But this whole idea, right? We're on the go all day, and you
Yeah,
just think about it: on the go drive-throughs and on the go lunches, and I just don't have time to actually stop. And when we do stop and ask ourselves, like, where exactly are we trying to get to? And this kind of
right.
striving for perfection. When I slow down and I think about it, it's amazing how I've given so much of my authority away to social media advertisers that are telling me what to
Mm-hmm.
think and what to buy and that there's not enough time and urgency. This
Mm-hmm.
idea of authority, I love this word authority. If you just slow it down, the word author and the word authority,
Right.
like who is authoring the story of our life? Is it out there, the marketers and all this conditioned thinking, or can we
Mm-hmm.
actually become the story we choose to tell ourselves? Can we be the authority over what we want to think and what we want to be? And I love coming into that mindset. So yeah.
Speaking of, like, on the go lunches, and I remember reading something a while back about, I believe it was the French. I'm sorry if you're in France and this is totally not true, but this is what I remember. The French take a lunch hour and everybody leaves the office for the lunch hour. If you eat at your desk, it means there is something seriously wrong. Like you screwed up because you're having to eat at your desk through lunch. And it's just no, 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 no. And I
Mm,
thought, that is so different than we Americans. We're like, oh, I always eat at my desk. I would not have time to go out for an hour lunch. I'd get so behind. And it's like, behind from what? The French obviously do it and they're not falling apart. They seem pretty happy.
totally.
It, it's,
You were mentioning this. This is just so in alignment with a coaching client I had this week who came to the session, and she has quite a bit of downtime in her job right now, I guess because of
Mhm.
the pandemic. And so she finds herself sitting at home and feeling really guilty because she feels like she should be doing something for work. And I gave her the challenge of, well, what if, this is just one of those seasons where you can rest, like it's a season of rest. Why don't you
Mhm.
take the extra hour and read a book or go for a walk on work time? And she
Yeah.
just didn't want anything to do with it at first, but we
Mm.
broke it down and realized that at the
Yeah.
bottom of that was a belief of I'm not worthy of taking this time for myself. And just it was so interesting to get to that bottom space. And when she started realizing that her worth was all tied up in this as well, about somehow I've
Mhm.
got to prove my worth by filling in all this time with my to-do list
And
items on.
extra time too. I bet she overworks and doesn't quit when she's supposed to, right?
Yeah, well, she's a
Yeah.
mom as well, and she was talking about
Oh,
just, she gets home and she's doing everything for everybody. So Yeah, I think that that's really important to notice is just
Hmm.
why are we filling in all this space? And
Hmm.
why don't we give ourselves a season of rest once in a while to just slow down and smell the roses, like you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah. Oh, literally smell the roses. Another
Literally.
concept that kind of came to me over the last year, it just popped in my head. I call it slow time. Um, I feel like over the last year, I got so many big swaths of time, like hours, that normally I didn't have because I had appointments and meetings and sessions. And it was just always like clippity, 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 clippity. And I was managing it and juggling it well. But suddenly it was Tuesday. I don't have anything booked. And then Wednesday, there's nothing booked. And it actually changed the kind of activities I was able to do. And I realized I hadn't been writing books for 15 years. I didn't have enough slow time in my life where the ideas just, they need like an hour or two or 8 or 12 to percolate, to happen. And I feel like I had cut out this whole realm of my life because I didn't allow it the kind of time it needed. So I made this weird definition up of I need big chunks of slow time. I can be productive in them, but there's certain activities that require them. Does that make sense to you? Is it just
Oh,
me?
you were speaking to the choir over here because similar situation for myself is, I run a pretty tight ship and I've got my calendar just slammed with things all the time. And
Hmm.
a couple months ago, I was actually going through a version of burnout and I was like, how is it possible? Like I teach this stuff of mindfulness and
Yeah.
and I'm feeling the pressure of just a slam schedule. So I did give myself permission to take a season of rest. And I just
Hmm.
literally started taking off Mondays and Fridays. And so I'd have a 3-day work week. And it cut back on, the amount of time I was spending cramming my schedule. And I found some similar kind of thing. Being a musician as well, I fired up my recording gear again and I've just started
Hmm.
like letting music come through again and writing a little bit more and creating. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a lost art for a lot of us because we're just on the go and we feel like we have to be doing all these things that we really don't have to be doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all limited thinking that keeps us slammed. So why not slow down and connect? I think when we do create that space between all the doing, like there is a creative source that's available that's
Yeah.
working anyways. But when we
Yeah.
make conscious contact with it, and then channel it through. Oh, like that's where all the I get chills thinking about that's where all the good books get written. And hopefully the next album that I end up writing will come from. And, and for you,
Yeah.
it's so, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm totally on board with what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like authors often say, I took a year to write my book. It's like, really? I'm sure it didn't take that long. You could literally have gotten that written in 3 months. I know it. But it's like,
Mhm.
no, I needed the slow time. I
Yeah.
needed the slow time. I needed to write for 3 hours and do something else for four so that I could refill again. I mean, like things that we don't get to do. How does this lead to anxiety, this feeling of not having time? Because you're also kind of a master at working with anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, so, what is that limitation of I'm always behind? I don't have time. I can't give this to myself now. I'll give it to myself later. These are other things that I hear connected.
Yeah. Well, I think it leads to anxiety because when we feel like we've got all these things on the go and we tell ourselves the story of there's not enough time, our thinking starts telling that story.
Mhm.
Even just thinking about when you said the word anxiety and not enough time, I feel it in my physical body. Like just think about
I'm
when you
sorry.
no, it's okay, but
I made you feel bad, Keith.
no, but I'm saying it's what happens. The anxiety creeps in because our physical body is so connected with our thinking. I mean, they're like two partners in a relationship. So what we're thinking about in our mind is being picked up and directly affected in the physical body. So all of a sudden, when we get into this sort of, oh my goodness, and at first it might even be like an excitement, like I've got so much to do on my list and I feel like I'm worthy now because I have so much going on and everything just starts getting slammed. Our bodies, our adrenaline just starts increasing and all of a sudden our nervous systems are sort of firing on all cylinders. Our breath shortens. We tend to feel in the physical body. You know, our chest gets tighter and everything just kind of clamps down and it's working so hard. And I think as a result of that, right, it's limited space physically in the body, limited space physically, and then mentally in the mind. And all of a sudden, right, this anxiety creeps in. So what exactly is anxiety? And in the mindfulness framework, if you think about it, when you're running and operating on that sort of fear stress response for the fight or flight or freeze mode, all of a sudden everything in the body can't flow properly because it's on sort of this protection mode, right? The amygdala part of our brain is trying to protect us and
Yeah.
keep us safe. And so it's like, oh, I've got to respond to all this stuff, all these emails coming in, all this stuff to do. And as a result, right, our blood flow also gets compressed. Everything gets compressed. And we find ourselves more tense, more stressed out. So that's why I'm such an advocate for integrating the deep breath work, the hula, as you mentioned earlier, moving the
Yeah.
body.
Hmm.
All of these things are just great practices to calm the nervous system down, to operate in what you call the slow space, to give ourselves a chance to just unwind and decompress.
Yeah.
It's so important. Otherwise, we're right out of balance, and this is when I think a lot of our disease happens.
Hmm.
Brian
Yeah.
Kest had said, he was quoting the medical system. They say 95% of our physical dis-ease in the body is caused by mental tension and stress, these stressful thoughts.
Yeah.
And so if we don't slow down, we're going to get sick.
I
And
can connect that to so many other scarcity thoughts. Like, I don't have time to make myself good food in the daytime. I have kids to take care of. I have, work deadlines. I don't have time for good food. I don't have time for exercise. I don't have time for taking care of me. I'll get to it someday
yeah,
after all this other stuff is done.
yeah. And you're so worthy to do it now. The time is now. Now is the moment of power. I was laughing. Michael Beckwith from Agape used to joke about this. He would say, are you living in Scarcity, like the city of fear, Scarcity?
That's
He
great.
said,
That's
it's
funny.
time. And then he'd put music on. He'd say, it's time to do a bun dance. And he'd get up and shake his butt and, put on some music and just,
That's
you know,
really funny.
be free. I loved it because I think we've kind of lost the joy of just
Yeah.
being free from all of the scarcity thinking that's
Yeah.
consuming us. It doesn't have to.
So where do
Yeah.
boundaries come in with this? I mean, that's what I think a lot of people would typically say. The way to regain time is to create more boundaries, more no's, essentially.
Yeah.
How do you feel on
I
that?
I love that. A couple of ways that I've set boundaries up that I could suggest to people listening that have helped.
Yes,
Um,
please.
there's a great app, Calendly, or any of those app schedulers that help you
Hmm.
schedule your calendar. Just block off the time in your calendar so nobody can book you in. I mean, it's amazing.
Hmm.
If you're not
Hmm.
somebody that works on a system of, like office work or schedule, you might even just in your calendar, anyways, book off time for just you and treat it like an appointment with yourself. Just, you know what? This is just as important as any other meeting I would have with myself or with anybody. That's one. Another one is another thing I do often is text myself little reminders. There's
Hmm.
an app that's called Tell Me Later, and I'll actually text myself reminders of are you looking after yourself right now? Are you drinking enough water? But
Hmm.
you could text yourself reminders of
I am.
are you good? Are you doing an
I have my water.
abundance?
No, I'm not doing my bun dance, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think those are important, and the most powerful two letters in the alphabet, N-O,
Yeah.
like reminders of saying no when really sticking to it. I think no is important here
Don't you
in this.
think that overgiving, though, is a form of trying to fill yourself up by filling up others until, you know what I'm saying? And that's what often leads us into no time and anxiety. But
Yeah,
we have this belief, unless we're doing more and more and more for others and keeping up all that stuff, somehow, if we stop doing that, we won't be enough, that we'll have slacked off, that we'll not be valuable. I'm not sure. Like, what are those beliefs that
Oh,
are
yeah.
kind of rumbling under there?
You're speaking to a recovering people pleaser. I've spent most of my life saying, yes, 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 of course I will. Of course I will. When
Yeah.
you get to the bottom of that, I've found that at the bottom of it, it's been a real belief of I'm not enough. I need to prove my worth by always saying yes to every opportunity. Because if I say
Yeah.
no, they might not like me or approve of me. And that's a
Hmm.
huge trap. That's a huge trap. And I say I'm a recovering people pleaser because I've really been working on this particular one that you named here. But I think the practice of saying no isn't necessarily a negative thing like a lot of us have been led to believe.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
just recently said no, and I've really reframed it that when I say no to an opportunity, it actually opens a door for somebody else, anyways. So it's
That's
not
true.
like, it's not like I'm saying, no, I don't want to do this and I don't like you, or you're not going to like me. It's I'm saying no because there's somebody else that's better suited for the opportunity. And just really
Hmm.
trusting my gut feeling on what I say yes to and what I say no to. It's a
Yeah.
crucial practice. Yeah.
I've found myself telling people a lot. Why don't you stop doing that and give someone else a chance? But I'm the only one who can do it, and I've got to take care of all this and da da da. I'm like, you're not
Yeah.
even giving your spouse a chance. Well, they wouldn't do it anyway. I'm like, because you haven't given them a chance for the last 15 years because you gave up on them and they can feel that. So of course they're going to be resentful about you saying you're doing everything. Give them a chance. And I flip it. So it's not, so they're doing something good for somebody else by saying, you do it, right? It's a
Yeah.
flip in the way you feel and think.
I love
And it
what you're
also helps relationships keep growing, by the way, I've discovered. So,
Well, yeah, I
mm,
think you're referencing another form of when we get into sort of this reactive space is control, like control freaks and perfectionists that have to do it all themselves. Because I can't give this away.
mhm,
In the work I've been studying around the leadership circle, sort of more in a business context, they're saying the most effective leaders are the ones that, especially the control freak ones, that shift their mindset to delegation, to
yeah.
collaboration, to
Hmm.
passing the torch on to other people so that they can learn and grow, as opposed to holding such tight reins that only I can do it. I think that we can
Hmm.
really get in our way when we get stuck in that whole way of being as well.
Yeah. And of course, it sucks up all your time. That's what it boils
Exactly.
down to.
A
And then you
burn the
get
all-nighter.
resentful and bitter at everybody else. Why am I doing everything? Because you
Exactly.
chose to. Yeah, because you chose to. Sad truth. I know. um, All right. God, we've covered a lot. Anything else you want to add? I mean, I know you teach a class on this, anxiety, or you've got a class for people that they can come. It's free.
It's a free workshop on overcoming stress and anxiety. And
Okay.
it's a really short little program. I just wanted to give people some tools, especially in the times we're in right now, to overcome some of these limited thinking patterns that we've adopted along the way. So in the workshop, I talk about something called the 3 N's, where you
Hmm.
start learning how to notice what you're thinking about on a regular basis, and if
Mm-hmm.
that's not serving you, how to actually reframe the thought. So it will be, yeah, it's there, and I would love to invite anyone listening to join me in that. It's a free on-demand workshop.
Great. We have the link for that. You gave it to me. So we'll be posting it with the video, with the audio interview, so everybody can find it. Of course, they can always go to your website, which is keithmacpherson.ca. And you probably don't want me to spell that out. So you're going to look for that link. But that's where you are, keithmacpherson.ca. Remember, Canada, not com.
Right.
So I wonder who's got .com. I bet that person is scratching his head all the time. Why are these people asking me about mindfulness, you know?
With dot com, it's some sort of a visual artist. I noticed.
Oh, that's
I've
cool.
reached out because I was so curious who it
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a visual painter. So he's kind of in the right field. Similar field.
Creative. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Keith. So what's next for you as far as limited beliefs and time, or where are you going, and anxiety, where are you going with all this, and where are you taking it with the world and the people you work with?
Yeah, well, I'm in the process right now of working on a new project, a writing project.
Nice.
Not music, but actual another book that's going to be right now it's just kind of geared towards this idea of how to make decisions and choices, and all around this topic of what I would call discerning and discernment. So early stages of that.
Mm-hmm.
I also just put out a program for schools, actually, through
Oh,
what's called the Hearts and Minds program. And we released a program that's going to help with bringing mindfulness into education, grades kindergarten to 6. And it's a 20 lesson plan curriculum that really helps teachers and students just develop a more positive mindset, especially again during these times we're in. So I'm very excited about that program that just launched. And I'm hoping that you and
very
I will
cool.
be able to hit the road soon and do something too.
Boy, I would love that. I know so much just percolating in the future is how it feels to me, and I think that's maybe been one of the biggest things for me about time and anxiety, like our topics, this conversation. I've had to learn a different way of being inside of time in my own life. I've noticed that I couldn't have the same expectations around time that I had before. Um, because it just with so much being different. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I've
I
it's a
do.
hard thing to describe, but
I
I've
do.
I've noticed how I give myself more time now for things than I used to.
Yeah.
I let myself stretch out into things. And it actually brings out different parts of me and my personality that I haven't seen in a long time. And
Wow.
I'm liking it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. There's something to be said for the space between everything,
mhm.
and to be in a rush and always on the go. I mean, we're missing out on that whole other part of who we are, the creativity, the imagination, the inspiration part of us. And that can
Yeah.
only come in the space between, I find. So,
It's funny because I know so many people who are, into the things we're into. They're always saying, I want more connection with spirit. I want more, divine guidance. And I'm like, slow down. How are you
yeah,
going to get it when you're racing right past it?
I think Simon
Wait,
and
no, I can't
Garfunkel.
slow down. Then you're not going to get your guidance. Darn it, you got to do this.
Exactly. I was just going
Yeah.
to say, I think Simon and Garfunkel wrote it best in their song Feeling Groovy. They said, slow down, you're moving
Ah,
too fast. You've got to make the morning last. I just love that sentiment.
yeah.
And just even to take a breath right now, and just slow down and to be in the power of what's really here. I mean, what an incredible opportunity to just be connected and to realize how perfectly on time everything is happening without forcing our way through it. It's just so much easier when we let go.
Yeah. That is a perfect ending line, Keith. I mean, like, nailed it. So I'm going to
Okay, good.
say that was good. That was very good. And I hope
Whoa.
anybody who's listening and watching is feeling like I'm going to schedule some time off and I'm going to bring my brain right back to now and maybe look you up as well. Look up your books, jump in that class of yours, get some more tools from you. So everybody, please go check out Keith McPherson. And thank you so much. And we'll
Thank
talk
you,
again.
Summer. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for all the amazing work you're doing on the planet. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Bye.